The cultural center is actually allowing us to have a place where we can have an honest to goodness conversation, a conversation that you won't see in the history books, because that's written by those who were in control of that history. Before we even can talk about, Ahmaud and the unfortunate way in which he died, we have to talk about the fact that this is not, an anomaly. This is actually a predictable outcome. We're talking about some white people in this country who have never separated themselves from that narrative of white superiority versus Black inferiority, which is what this was all about in the inception of slavery. You have people like Mitch McConnell stating things like, what does slavery have to do with him? And that's exactly where we go wrong. In order to enslave a human being, you first have to think of them as inhuman. We were born literally in the inequality that we're facing right now. We need to get educated. There's a connection. All of these dots connect, and we can literally trace them all the way back to when we first arrived on this continent, as slaves. Because back then, when we were slaves and when we were considered 3/5 of a human, that actually gave credence to that superiority that certain whites feel to dictate, dominate, and control the outcome of African Americans. So we see this institutional racism in education, in housing, in employment. Now we're seeing them manifest themselves in disparities in health. What does T. Thomas say about this? Well, he was very clear, because he had, in one quote that we know that we've always seen, been very clear about what this produces. He says it is not safe in the Republican form of government that clannishness should exist either by compulsory or by voluntary reason. So what we have is this birth and this way of conducting what America is for some in a clannish way, like in Virginia, where you have this very same leadership referring to the people who were literally perpetrating the same type of terrorist acts that were directed against Black people and referring to them as good people. So this is all, as T. Thomas referred to, as clannishness. My son goes jogging, and he goes jogging every day because he's a soccer player. That could have been my child, who is 17. Emmett Till was 14. Trayvon was 17. Jordan Davis was 17. Ahmaud Arbery, he was 25. And I see my child in them. To me, there's no difference. Now I have to say to him, if anybody approaches you in a suspicious way, be as contrite as possible, because I don't want them pulling a gun and shooting him to death. It's not just Trayvon Martin. It's not just Ahmaud Arbery. There was Jordan Davis. He was a 17-year-old. I think you may remember he was killed sitting in a car because a white male thought he was playing his music too loudly. So he shot up the car. T. Thomas Cultural Center is allowing people to have these conversations in ways that we cannot deny, any longer what has been happening to us as a people, what has happened, what has been happening to us. It allows us a place in which we can have some honest to goodness conversation about the truth, the actual truth about the history of America. You can write laws, but laws don't change hearts. Only seeing me as you see yourself will change your heart. You have to see me as you view yourself. I have to be as important to you as you are to me. And we have to see each other then with a mutual humanity.